The champagne was still cold in my hand when my phone started blowing up. Not the usual congratulations from teammates or family. These were different. Angry messages, news alerts, screenshots of Twitter threads calling me every name you could imagine. I stood there in the conference room of the Peninsula Hotel, surrounded by executives in expensive suits, watching my entire world shift in real time. Just 2 hours earlier, I had signed the biggest endorsement deal in my career. $100 million over 5 years with Apex Athletics, one of the most recognizable sports brands on the planet. My agent Marcus had been working on this for 8 months. The negotiations were brutal, but we got everything we wanted. Signature shoe line, creative control, equity stake, global marketing campaign. It was the kind of deal that separated superstars from everyone else. Marcus stood next to me at the signing table, grinning like he had just won the lottery, which, in a way, he had. His 15% commission meant he was walking away with 15 million reasons to celebrate. The Apex executives were already talking about the press conference tomorrow, the photo shoot next week, the commercial shoot in Barcelona next month. They had a whole vision for my brand. They kept using that word. Brand. Like I was a product they had just acquired. I should have felt incredible. This was validation. Proof that all the hours in the gym, all the sacrifices, all the nights alone in hotel rooms across the country had been worth something. But standing there with everyone shaking my hand and patting my back, I felt something else. Something I could not quite name. It was like standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down, knowing you were about to jump, but not knowing if there was water below or just rocks. My phone buzzed again, then it started ringing. I pulled it out of my pocket and saw my mom's name on the screen. I excused myself from the room and walked into the hallway, pressing the phone to my ear. "Mom," I said, "did you see the news?" There was a pause on the other end. Too long. When she finally spoke, her voice was tight. "Baby, have you seen what people are saying about this company?" I leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. "What are you talking about?" "The news broke about an hour ago. There's a huge report about Apex Athletics. Factories overseas, workers being exploited, children as young as 12 making shoes for pennies. It's all over the news." I felt my stomach drop. "Mom, that cannot be right. This is a major company. They would not—" She cut me off. "I am watching it right now on CNN. They have videos, baby. Interviews with workers. Documents. This is serious." I closed my eyes and pressed my forehead against the cool wall. How bad is it? Bad enough that people are already calling for boycotts. Bad enough that your name is trending on Twitter. Not in a good way. I ended the call after promising her I would figure things out and walked back into the conference room. Everyone was still celebrating. Marcus had loosened his tie and was laughing with one of the Apex VPs. Nobody seemed to have any idea that a bomb had just been dropped on us. "Marcus," I said, pulling him aside. "We need to talk." His smile faded when he saw my face. "What is wrong?" I showed him my phone. The headlines were everywhere now. Major sportswear giant accused of labor abuses. Investigation reveals child labor in Apex Athletics supply chain. Workers detail horrific conditions in overseas factories. Marcus's face went pale. He grabbed my phone and started scrolling, his jaw clenching tighter with each headline. "When did this break?" "About an hour ago, right after we signed." He looked at the Apex executives across the room, then back at me. "This is bad timing, but it is not your problem. Let their PR team handle it. These stories come out all the time. They will release a statement, promise an investigation, and in 2 weeks, everyone will forget about it." I stared at him. "You think people are just going to forget that kids are making my shoes?" He put his hand on my shoulder and lowered his voice. "Listen to me. You just signed a $100 million contract. Do not let one news story make you panic. Every major brand has dealt with this kind of thing. Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, they all survived. Apex will survive. And so will you. But my name is on this deal now. My face is going to be on their commercials. People are going to associate me with this." Marcus squeezed my shoulder harder. "That is exactly why you need to stay quiet and let the professionals handle it. If you say anything right now, you will make it worse. Trust me." I wanted to trust him. Marcus had been my agent since I entered the league 5 years ago. He had negotiated my rookie contract, my first endorsement deals, my extension with the team. He had made me millions. He knew the business better than anyone I had ever met. But standing there, looking at his face, I realized something. He was not worried about me. He was worried about his commission. I pulled away from him and walked to the window. Below us, the city stretched out in every direction. Lights, traffic, millions of people living their lives. How many of them were going to wake up tomorrow and see my name attached to this scandal? How many were going to think I did not care about exploited workers as long as I got paid? My phone started ringing again. This time, it was Coach Stevens. I stepped out into the hallway again and answered. "Coach," I said. "Tell me you did not know about this," he said. No greeting, no small talk, just straight to the point. That was Coach Stevens. 30 years in the league. No patience for games. I just found out, I swear. There was a long silence. Then he sighed. "The front office is already getting calls. Reporters want statements. Fans are angry. This is going to be a distraction we do not need right now. I know. I am sorry. Sorry does not fix this. You need to figure out what you are going to say. And you need to figure it out fast, because tomorrow morning, every reporter in this city is going to be waiting for you at practice. And they are not going to ask about basketball." After I hung up, I stood in that hallway for a long time. Through the door, I could still hear the celebration. Laughter, clinking glasses, people toasting to success. But out here, alone, reality was setting in. I had just attached my name to something that might destroy everything I had built. My phone buzzed with a text from my girlfriend Jasmine. "We need to talk. Call me." I did not call. I could not. Not yet. Because I knew what she was going to say. Jasmine had always been the conscious one. She volunteered at community centers. She organized charity events. She cared about things like fair trade and ethical sourcing. She had probably already seen the news, and she was probably already wondering what kind of man she was dating. I walked to the elevator and pressed the button for the lobby. I needed air. I needed space. I needed to think. But when the elevator doors opened on the ground floor, I saw a small crowd of protesters outside the hotel entrance. They had signs. No justice, no peace. Apex Athletics exploits children. Blood money. One of them saw me through the glass doors and pointed. Others turned. Cameras came out. I stepped back into the elevator and hit the button for the parking garage. When I got to my car, I just sat there in the driver's seat, staring at nothing. My phone kept buzzing. Messages from teammates, former coaches, friends from college. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. Did I know? Was I going to keep the deal? What was I going to do? I did not have answers. All I had was a $100 million contract with my signature on it and a feeling in my gut that I had just made the biggest mistake of my life. I drove home in silence. No music, no radio, just the sound of the engine and the hum of the city around me. When I pulled into my building's garage, I saw a news van parked across the street. A reporter and a cameraman standing outside, waiting. I parked and took the service elevator up to my apartment, avoiding the lobby. Inside, everything looked the same as when I had left that morning, but it felt different, like the walls were closing in. I poured myself a drink and sat on the couch, finally opening Twitter. That was a mistake. The trending topics were brutal. Boycott Apex, blood money, sell out. And right there in the middle of it all was my name. People I had never met were calling me greedy, heartless, a disgrace to the game. Some of the tweets were from fans who used to cheer for me. They were burning my jersey in videos, posting pictures of my shoes in the trash. One woman wrote that she had supported me since my rookie year, but could never look at me the same way again. That one hit harder than all the others. I closed the app and threw my phone across the room. It landed on the carpet with a soft thud. I sat there in the dark, trying to figure out how everything had fallen apart so fast. This morning, I was on top of the world. Tonight, I was public enemy number 1. Around midnight, Someone knocked on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Jasmine standing there. I had not called her back. She had come anyway. I opened the door and she walked past me without saying anything. She stood in the middle of my living room, arms crossed, looking at me like she was trying to decide whether she even knew me anymore. "Were you going to call me back?" she finally said. I was going to. I just needed time to think. Time to think about what? About whether you care that children are being exploited so you can have a signature shoe? "That is not fair," I said. "I did not know, but you know now. So what are you going to do about it?" "I do not know yet. Marcus says I should let Apex handle it. Stay quiet, let it blow over." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Of course that is what Marcus says. He gets $15 million whether those kids get justice or not. It is not that simple, Jasmine. It is exactly that simple. You either stand for something or you do not. You either care about people or you care about money. There is no middle ground here. I sank down onto the couch and put my head in my hands. You think I do not know that? You think I am not losing my mind over this? She sat down next to me, her voice softer now. I know you care. I know you are not the kind of person who would knowingly support this. But now you know, and what you do next is going to define who you really are. We sat there in silence for a long time. Outside, the city hummed with life. People going to bars, coming home from work, living normal lives. Meanwhile, mine was unraveling thread by thread. "What would you do?" I asked her. She looked at me with those eyes that had always seen right through me. I would walk away from the money. I would use my platform to demand change. I would show people that integrity matters more than a bank account, even if it cost me everything, especially if it cost you everything, because that is when it actually means something. After she left, I stood at my window looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, kids were going to bed in factory dormitories. Kids who should have been in school. Kids who were making products with my name on them. And I was standing in a luxury apartment, trying to decide if my conscience was worth $100 million. My phone lit up on the floor where I had thrown it. Another news alert. Apex Athletics stock drops, 5% after labor scandal. Investors nervous. Celebrity endorsers under scrutiny. I picked up the phone and opened my contacts. I scrolled to Marcus's name and stared at it for a long time. Then I scrolled past it to another name. My mom. She answered on the first ring. "Baby?" "Mom," I said. "I need you to tell me what to do." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that changed everything. "I did not raise you to look the other way when people are suffering. I raised you to be the kind of man who does what is right even when it is hard. Especially when it is hard. You already know what to do. You are just scared to do it." She was right. I did know. I had known since the moment I saw those headlines. I just did not want to admit it because admitting it meant giving up everything I had worked for. But keeping the money meant giving up something even more important. It meant giving up the person I thought I was. I ended the call and sat there in the dark, the weight of the decision pressing down on me like a physical thing. Tomorrow morning, I would have to face the cameras, face the questions, face the choice between my career and my conscience. And I still had no idea which one I was going to choose. I did not sleep that night. I sat on my couch watching the news coverage loop over and over, different channels, same story, Apex Athletics, child labor, exploitation, and my face, my name, my signature on a contract that was supposed to be the crowning achievement of my career, but had become an anchor dragging me down. Around 5 a.m, I gave up on sleep entirely and went to the gym in my building. Empty, dark, just me and the weights and the sound of my own breathing. I pushed myself harder than I had in months, trying to sweat out the anxiety, trying to exhaust myself into clarity. But every time I closed my eyes between sets, I saw those factory images from the news reports. Kids younger than my little cousin, hunched over sewing machines, hands moving fast, eyes tired. By 7, I was showered and dressed and sitting in my car in the parking garage, staring at my steering wheel. Practice started at 9. I had 2 hours to figure out what I was going to say to my teammates, to Coach Stevens, to the media circus that would definitely be waiting outside the facility. My phone rang. Marcus. Where are you? He said when I answered. About to head to practice. Good. Listen to me very carefully. Do not say anything to anyone. Not the press, not your teammates, not even coach. Apex has a team of crisis management specialists flying in this morning. We are meeting at my office at noon. They are going to prep you for the press conference tomorrow. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. What press conference? The one where you and the Apex CEO are going to address the situation together. Show a united front. Announce that Apex is launching an independent investigation. Promise accountability and transparency. All the things people want to hear. And what am I supposed to say? You are going to say that you take these allegations seriously, that you believe in fair labor practices, that you are committed to working with Apex to ensure their supply chain meets the highest ethical standards. And then you are going to thank everyone for their concern and redirect questions to the Apex PR team. I sat there listening to him lay out this strategy like it was a play we were drawing up on a whiteboard. Clean. Simple. Rehearsed. But nothing about this felt clean or simple. What if I do not want to do a press conference with them, I said. The line went quiet for a moment. Then Marcus spoke slowly, carefully. You signed a contract. A legally binding contract with massive penalty clauses if you breach it. If you walk away from this deal, you will owe Apex millions in damages. Not to mention the endorsement deals that will disappear, the sponsorships that will evaporate. Your entire brand will be toxic. Nobody will touch you. So, I am trapped. You are protected. There is a difference. This company has resources, lawyers, PR teams. They know how to navigate this. Let them do what they do best. I ended the call without agreeing to anything and drove to the practice facility. The parking lot was already surrounded. News vans, reporters, cameras, a few protesters with signs. I pulled around to the back entrance that players used when they wanted to avoid attention. But even there, a handful of journalists were waiting. I kept my head down and walked fast. Questions flew at me from every direction. Do you regret signing the deal? Will you donate your endorsement money to the workers? Do you think you have a moral responsibility to speak out? I did not answer any of them. I just kept walking until I was through the doors and into the safety of the building. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. My teammates were already on the court warming up, but the energy was off. Guys who usually joked around were quiet. Nobody made eye contact with me when I walked into the locker room. I changed into my practice gear and headed out to the court. Coach Stevens was standing at center court with his arms crossed, watching me approach. The whistle around his neck seemed heavier than usual. Everyone take a knee, he said. The team gathered around him in a circle. I sat down next to my teammate Devin, who had been my closest friend on the team since I got drafted. He did not look at me. Coach Stevens looked around the circle slowly, making eye contact with each player. Then his eyes landed on me and stayed there. We have a situation, he said, and we are going to address it once. Right now. Then we are going to focus on basketball, because in 3 days we have a game against the best team in the league and I do not care what is happening in the media. I care about winning. He paused, still looking at me. Anyone who has something to say it now. Get it out. Then we move forward. The silence was thick. Nobody spoke, but I could feel the judgment radiating from some of my teammates, the disappointment, the anger. Finally, Devin spoke up. I just want to know if you knew, before you signed. Did you know about the labor stuff? I looked at him. We had played together for 3 years, been to dinner at each other's houses, met each other's families. If I could not be honest with him, I could not be honest with anyone. No, I said. I did not know. I found out the same time everyone else did. After I signed. Another teammate, Chris, leaned forward. So, what are you going to do about it now? I do not know yet. That is not good enough, Chris said, his voice rising. You are about to become the face of a company that exploits kids. That makes all of us look bad. That makes this team look bad. Coach Stevens held up his hand. That is enough. This is not a debate. I called this meeting so everyone could air their concerns. But at the end of the day, This is between him and his conscience, not between him and us. But it affects us, coach, another player said. Fans are already saying they are not coming to games because of this. Sponsors are nervous. This is bigger than just him. Coach Stevens turned to me. You have anything you want to say? I stood up. Every eye in the gym was on me. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I hear you, I said. All of you. And you are right. This is bigger than me. But I am asking you to trust that I am going to handle this the right way. I just need some time to figure out what that looks like. Chris shook his head and stood up. Time? Kids are working in factories right now. They do not have time. He walked off the court and disappeared into the locker room. 2 other players followed him. The rest of the team sat there, torn between loyalty and principle. Practice was a disaster. Passes were off, shots were rushed, communication was non-existent. Coach Stevens blew his whistle every 30 seconds, getting more and more frustrated. By the time we finished, everyone was exhausted and pissed off. I showered quickly and headed to my car, hoping to avoid another media ambush. But when I got to the parking lot, I saw Jasmine waiting by my car. She was not alone. She had brought a woman I did not recognize. Middle-aged, simple clothes, tired eyes. This is Maria, Jasmine said. She used to work in one of the Apex factories. My stomach dropped. I looked at Maria and saw something in her face that I would never forget. Not anger, not hatred, just exhaustion. The kind that comes from years of fighting and losing. Maria started speaking in accented English. I worked for Apex for 7 years. In Honduras, I made shoes for famous athletes, for famous brands. I worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, for less than $2 an hour. My daughter wanted to go to school, but I could not afford it. So she came to work with me. She was 13. I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. I could not breathe. When the factory caught fire last year, Jasmine continued, Maria and her daughter barely made it out. 23 workers did not. Apex paid the families $300 each and moved production to another facility. I looked at Jasmine. Why are you doing this? Because you need to see her face. You need to hear her story. You need to understand that this is not just a PR problem. These are real people, real lives. Maria reached into her bag and pulled out a photo. A young girl, maybe 14. Bright eyes, wide smile. She handed it to me. That is my daughter, Maria said. She wanted to be a teacher. Now she works in the same factory I did, making shoes for people who will never know her name. I held the photo in my hands and felt something break inside me. All the justifications I had been building in my head. All the reasons Marcus had given me to stay quiet and let the professionals handle it. All of it crumbled. I am sorry, I said. It felt pathetically inadequate, but I did not know what else to say. Sorry does not change anything, Maria said. Only action changes things. She took the photo back, got into Jasmine's car, and they drove away. I stood there in the parking lot, feeling the weight of that moment settle into my bones. I had a choice to make, and I was running out of time to make it. I drove to Marcus's office for the noon meeting, but my mind was somewhere else. It was in a factory in Honduras. It was with a 13-year-old girl who should have been in school but was sewing shoes instead. It was with the 23 workers who died in a fire because safety did not matter as much as production quotas. Marcus's office was on the 40th floor of a downtown high-rise. Floor-to-ceiling windows, expensive furniture, awards and photos covering the walls, success on display. When I walked in, the conference room was already full. Marcus, 3 people in suits I did not recognize, and a woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper suit who introduced herself as Catherine Wells, head of crisis communications for Apex Athletics. She did not waste time. We have a narrow window to control this narrative, she said. Right now, the story is about exploited workers and celebrity complicity. We need to shift it to corporate accountability and commitment to change. She clicked a remote and a presentation appeared on the screen behind her. Talking points, statistics, strategies. It was all very polished, very professional, very empty. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., you and our CEO will hold a joint press conference, she continued. You will read from this statement. Do not deviate, do not improvise, just read the words we give you. The goal is to show solidarity with Apex while expressing concern for the workers. We walk the line between accountability and liability. What about the actual workers, I said. What is being done for them? Catherine looked at me like I had just asked a very stupid question. That is being handled through the proper legal channels. Our priority right now is managing public perception and protecting the brand. Your brand included. I looked around the room. Everyone was nodding. Everyone agreed with her. This was just business. Just damage control. Just another problem to solve with the right words and the right strategy. I stood up. I am not doing the press conference. The room went silent. Marcus stood up too. Can we have a moment alone? He pulled me out into the hallway and closed the door behind us. What are you doing? I am not standing next to their CEO and reading their script. I am not pretending this is just a PR problem. You signed a contract. Do you understand what will happen if you breach it? I met a woman today. Her daughter is 14 years old and working in one of their factories. She showed me a picture. I cannot unsee that, Marcus. He grabbed my arm, his grip tight. Listen to me. You are having an emotional reaction. That is understandable. But you need to think long term. If you walk away from this deal, you will be labeled as unstable, unreliable. No other brand will want to work with you. Your career will never recover. Maybe that is the price of doing the right thing. The right thing? The right thing for who? For workers you have never met in countries you have never been to? What about your family? What about your future? What about everything you have worked for? I pulled my arm away from him. You keep talking about what I have worked for. But I did not work for this. I did not work to become the face of child labor. I did not work to sell out for $100 million. His face hardened. You are making a mistake, a massive mistake, and I cannot protect you from the consequences. I do not need protection. I need to be able to look at myself in the mirror. I walked back into the conference room, grabbed my jacket, and headed for the elevator. Behind me, I could hear Marcus and Catherine arguing, but I did not care. I had made my decision. When I got home, I sat down at my laptop and opened a blank document. I started typing. No script, no talking points, just the truth. It took me 3 hours to write. When I was done, I read it over twice, then sent it to my publicist with a simple message. Post this on all my social media tonight. Then I called my mom. I did it, I said when she answered. I am walking away from the deal. She did not say anything for a long moment. Then I heard her crying softly on the other end of the line. I am proud of you, baby. So proud. After I hung up, I sat in my apartment waiting for the post to go live, waiting for the fallout, waiting for my entire world to change again. But this time, I was ready, because this time, I was choosing who I wanted to be instead of letting fear and money choose for me. At 8 p.m., my phone started buzzing. The statement was live, and the world was watching. The statement I posted was simple. No corporate language, no carefully crafted messaging. Just me, speaking directly to the people who had supported me throughout my career. I wrote that I had signed the Apex Athletics deal without knowledge of the labor practices in their supply chain, that I had learned about the exploitation after the fact, that I had been advised to stay quiet and let the company handle it, but that I could not do that. I could not put my name on a brand that profited from the suffering of workers, many of them children. I was terminating my contract with Apex Athletics effective immediately, regardless of the financial and legal consequences. And I was committing to using my platform to advocate for fair labor practices in the sports industry. Within 30 minutes, the post had 100,000 reactions. Within an hour, it was national news. By midnight, it had gone global. The responses were split. Half the comments were supportive, people calling me brave, saying I had done the right thing, thanking me for standing up for workers who had no voice. The other half called me an idiot, said I had thrown away $100 million for nothing, that I was virtue signaling, that I would regret this decision for the rest of my life. But the harshest response came the next morning. A letter from Apex Athletics legal team, delivered to my door by courier at 6 a.m. I opened it, standing in my kitchen, still in my pajamas, coffee getting cold on the counter. The language was brutal and efficient. I had violated multiple clauses in my contract. I was being sued for breach of contract, defamation, and tortious interference with business relationships. They were seeking $95 million in damages, plus legal fees, plus a court order forcing me to publicly retract my statement and issue an apology. My hands shook as I read it. $95 million. I did not have $95 million. Nobody did. Not really. Not in liquid assets you could just hand over. My entire net worth was maybe $40 million if you counted my houses, my cars, my investments, and most of that was tied up in ways that would take months or years to access. I called my lawyer. She answered on the second ring. "I saw the news," she said before I could speak, "and I am guessing you just got served." "How bad is this?" "Very bad. Apex has an army of attorneys and unlimited resources. They are not bluffing. They will drag this through court for years if they have to, and they will win. Can they actually get $95 million from me?" She sighed. "Depends on how the judge interprets the morality clauses in your contract. But even if they only get half of that, you are looking at financial ruin, bankruptcy, loss of assets. Your houses, your cars, everything you own will be on the table." I sat down at my kitchen table and put my head in my hands. "So what do I do?" "You have two options. One, you settle. Apex will want you to publicly apologize, retract your statement, and probably agree to some kind of gag order preventing you from speaking about this again. In exchange, they will reduce the damages to something you can actually pay, maybe 10 or 15 million. And option two, you fight. You go to trial. You argue that you had a moral and ethical right to terminate the contract based on information you learned after signing. But I have to be honest with you, the chances of winning that argument are slim. Contracts are contracts, and you signed this one with your eyes open. I did not know about the labor abuses when I signed it. Proving that in court will be nearly impossible. And even if you could prove it, the contract has clauses that protect Apex in exactly this kind of situation. They have been doing this for 30 years. Their lawyers are very good. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen staring at nothing. I had made a choice based on principle, and now I was facing the reality of what that choice cost. Not just money. My entire life. Everything I had built. Everything I had worked for since I was a kid shooting hoops in my driveway, dreaming of making it to the league. My phone rang. Marcus. I answered, but did not say anything. "Are you happy now?" he said. His voice was ice. "You have destroyed your career. You have made me look like an incompetent idiot who cannot control his own client, and you have guaranteed that no major brand will ever work with you again. I did what I thought was right. Right? You want to talk about right? I have spent the last 12 hours on the phone with sponsors pulling out of deals. Endorsements worth millions of dollars gone. Your shoe contract with Nike gone. Your partnership with Gatorade under review. Your appearance fees cut in half. You are toxic now. Congratulations. I am sorry you are losing money, Marcus, but this is not about you." He laughed, bitter and sharp. "You are right. It is about you, your ego, your need to be seen as some kind of hero. Well, enjoy your moral victory while you are living in a studio apartment because you had to sell everything you owned to pay off Apex." He hung up. I sat there in the silence of my apartment, feeling the walls close in. My phone kept buzzing with messages. Some supportive, some angry. Some from people I had not heard from in years, suddenly very interested in my life now that it was falling apart. One message stood out. It was from Devin, my teammate. "Man, I do not know if what you did was smart. But it took guts, respect. It was not much. But it was something. I got dressed and went for a drive. I did not have a destination. I just needed to move, needed to think. I ended up at the park where I used to play pickup games when I first moved to the city. Before the league, before the contracts and the endorsements and the pressure. Back when basketball was just basketball, there were kids on the court, teenagers, playing 3-on-3, trash talking, laughing, living in the moment. I sat on a bench and watched them, remembering what that felt like. The simplicity of it. The purity. One of the kids recognized me. He walked over, nervous but excited. "Yo, you are him, right? The guy who walked away from Apex?" "Yeah," I said. "That is me." "That was crazy, man. My mom said you are stupid for giving up all that money. But my uncle said you are a legend. He said you stood up for something. What do you think?" The kid shrugged. "I think money is cool, but so is having principles. I do not know. It is complicated." I smiled. "Yeah, it is complicated." He went back to his game, and I sat there a while longer, watching them play. For the first time since this whole thing started, I felt a little bit of peace. Not because I knew everything would work out, but because I knew I had made a choice I could live with. That afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost did not answer, but something made me pick up. "Is this him?" a woman's voice said. "The basketball player who quit Apex?" "Yeah." "Who is this?" "My name is Sarah Chen. I am an investigative journalist with the Times. I have been covering labor abuses in the garment industry for 10 years. I saw your statement. I want to help you. Help me how? I have documents, emails, internal memos from Apex that prove they knew about the labor violations for years and deliberately covered them up. If you are willing to go public with this information, it could change everything. Not just for your case, but for the entire industry." I met Sarah at a coffee shop downtown 2 hours later. She showed up with a thick folder of documents and a laptop covered in stickers from human rights organizations. She spread the documents across the table between us. "Look at this. Internal audits from 2013 showing unsafe working conditions. Emails from executives discussing how to minimize PR damage if the story ever broke. Memos about paying off local officials to avoid inspections. This company has been operating this way for decades." I looked through the documents, my stomach turning with each page. How did you get all this? Whistleblowers, former employees, people who could not live with what they saw anymore. But none of them have the platform to make this matter. You do. What are you asking me to do? Go on the record. Let me publish your story along with these documents. Show the world that this is not just about one bad contract. It is about a systemic problem. And it is about companies betting that celebrities will take the money and stay quiet. If I do this, Apex will come after me even harder. Sarah nodded. They will. But you will also have public support. And more importantly, you will have the truth on your side. That matters. I thought about Maria, about her daughter, about the 23 workers who died in that fire, about all the people who had no choice but to keep working in those conditions because they had families to feed and bills to pay. "Okay," I said, "let's do it." We spent the next 6 hours at that coffee shop. Sarah recorded our conversation, asked me questions, took notes. By the time we were done, the sun was setting and the coffee shop was closing. "This is going to be big," she said as we walked to our cars. "Are you ready for that?" "I do not think you can ever really be ready. But I am in now, no going back." The article ran 3 days later. Front page, my face, the headline, "NBA star exposes Apex Athletics cover-up of labor abuses." The story detailed everything, the internal documents, the cover-ups, the deliberate exploitation, and my decision to walk away despite the cost. The reaction was immediate and massive. Within hours, other athletes started speaking out. Some defended Apex, but more and more started questioning their own endorsement deals, started asking their agents about the companies they were promoting, started demanding transparency. 2 senators called for congressional hearings. The stock market reacted. Apex's share price dropped 15% in one day. The CEO issued a statement calling my allegations reckless and defamatory, promising to pursue legal action to the fullest extent of the law. But something else happened too. Workers started coming forward, from factories around the world, sharing their stories, posting photos, creating videos. The narrative was shifting. This was not just about me anymore. It was about them. And they were not staying silent. Jasmine called me that night. I cannot believe you did it. I cannot believe you actually did it. I had to. After meeting Maria, I could not do it. You know they are going to destroy you in court, right? Probably, but at least I will go down swinging. She laughed. That is the man I fell in love with. That night, I could not sleep again. But this time, it was not anxiety keeping me awake. It was adrenaline. The feeling that I had finally stepped into something bigger than basketball, bigger than endorsements, bigger than me. My phone buzzed with a text from my mom. Just read the article. Your father would be so proud of you. My dad had died when I was in college. Heart attack, sudden, unexpected. He never got to see me play in the NBA, never got to see me make it. But he had raised me with a clear sense of right and wrong. And I knew, wherever he was, he would have told me I made the right choice. The next morning, I got another letter from Apex's legal team. They were adding additional charges, increasing the damages to $120 million. They were going for everything. My lawyer called. This is worse than I thought. They are not interested in settling. They want to make an example of you. Then let them try. You understand what you are risking here? Everything. Your career, your savings, your future. I understand, but some things are more important than security. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that surprised me. Okay. Then let's give them a fight they will never forget. That afternoon, my legal team filed a countersuit. We were going after Apex for fraud, misrepresentation, and knowingly concealing material information that would have affected my decision to sign the contract. We were demanding the release of all internal documents related to their labor practices, and we were asking for damages on behalf of the workers who had been exploited. It was a long shot, maybe even a suicide mission, but it was the only play we had left. Coach Stevens called me into his office the next day. He sat behind his desk, looking older than I had ever seen him. You are a distraction, he said. To the team, to the organization, to everyone. I know. The front office wants me to bench you until this legal situation is resolved. I nodded. I understand, but I am not going to do that. You know why? I shook my head. Because you are the best player on this team. And because despite everything, you showed up to every practice. You played every game. You did not run. You did not hide. And that matters. He stood up and walked around the desk, sat on the edge of it looking at me directly. What you did took courage. Stupid courage, maybe, but courage nonetheless. And I am not going to punish you for that. But you need to understand something. This team cannot afford to lose. Not games, not sponsors, not fans. So you are going to play. And you are going to play better than you have ever played before. Because that is the only way any of this matters. I will, coach. I promise. As I left his office, I realized something. I was still in this. Still fighting. Still standing. And whatever came next, I would face it head on. Because that is what you do when you have something worth fighting for. The lawsuit consumed my life. Every morning started with calls from my legal team. Every afternoon was spent reviewing documents, preparing depositions, and strategizing for court appearances. Every night ended with me sitting alone in my apartment, staring at financial projections that showed me losing everything I had ever earned. But basketball kept me sane. Practice became my escape. The court was the one place where nothing else mattered. No lawsuits, no media scrutiny, no death threats from Apex supporters who thought I was destroying American jobs. Just the sound of sneakers on hardwood and the swish of the net when a shot fell clean. Coach Stevens kept his word. I played every game. And I played like my life depended on it. Because in a way, it did. Every point I scored, every win we got reminded people that I was more than just a controversy. I was a basketball player. And a damn good one. We were on a 7-game winning streak when the preliminary hearing for the lawsuit began. The courthouse was surrounded by protesters. Some held signs supporting me. Others called me a traitor and a hypocrite. News crews from every major network were set up on the steps. Security had to escort me through a side entrance just to get inside. The courtroom was packed. Apex had sent a team of 12 lawyers. My side had 3. The difference in resources was visible and intimidating. Their lead attorney was a man named Robert Hutchinson, 60-something, silver hair, expensive suit, and a reputation for destroying people in court. My lead attorney was Jennifer Morrison, 42, brilliant and unafraid. She had warned me that this first hearing would set the tone for everything that followed. If the judge dismissed our countersuit, we would be fighting with one hand tied behind our backs. If the judge allowed it to proceed, we had a chance. Judge Patricia Reeves entered the courtroom and everyone stood. She was a black woman in her late 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She had been on the bench for 20 years and had a reputation for fairness, but also for not tolerating games. The hearing lasted 4 hours. Hutchinson argued that I had violated a clear and binding contract, that I had made defamatory statements about Apex without evidence, that I had caused irreparable harm to their brand and their business relationships. He spoke with confidence and precision, painting me as an impulsive celebrity who had thrown a tantrum and now needed to face the consequences. Then Jennifer stood up. She presented the internal documents Sarah had given us. She walked the judge through emails showing that Apex executives knew about the labor violations and chose to ignore them. She showed communications where they discussed how to keep the information from becoming public. She argued that I had been fraudulently induced to sign a contract with a company that was deliberately hiding material information about their business practices. And she said something that stuck with me long after we left that courtroom. Your Honor, this case is not just about breach of contract. It is about whether corporations can use legal agreements to silence people who discover the truth. If we say that my client must honor a contract that was based on lies and omissions, we are saying that money matters more than morality. And I do not believe that is the kind of precedent this court wants to set. The judge listened without showing any emotion. When both sides finished, she said she would issue a ruling within 2 weeks. Court adjourned. Outside, Jennifer pulled me aside. That went better than I expected. But do not get your hopes up. Even if she lets our countersuit proceed, we still have a long road ahead. Apex is not going to give up. They will fight this with everything they have. I know, but so will we. That night, I had dinner with my mom. She had flown in from home to support me through the hearing. We sat at a quiet restaurant away from downtown, trying to have a normal conversation. But normal did not exist anymore. "How are you holding up, baby?" she asked. "I am tired, Mom. Tired of fighting. Tired of being in the news. Tired of watching my bank account drain every time my lawyers bill me." She reached across the table and took my hand. "I know this is hard, but you are doing something important. You are standing up for people who cannot stand up for themselves. I just hope it is worth it. Sometimes I wonder if I should have just kept my head down and cashed the checks." She squeezed my hand tighter. "Do not you dare say that. Do not you dare doubt yourself now. Your father raised you better than that. He taught you that integrity is not something you have when it is convenient. It is something you have when it costs you everything." Tears stung my eyes, but I blinked them back. I miss him. I know. Me too. But he is watching you, and he is so proud. The next few weeks were a blur. Games, practices, legal meetings, media appearances. I did an interview with a national sports network where they asked me if I regretted my decision. I said no. Because even if I lost everything, at least I would know I tried to do the right thing. The interview went viral. Some people praised me, others mocked me. But it started a conversation. Other athletes began questioning their endorsement deals. Some even started backing out of contracts with companies that had questionable labor practices. I had not set out to start a movement, but somehow that is what was happening. Then came the game that changed everything. We were playing against the defending champions. National television, sold-out arena, the biggest stage possible. And I was exhausted. Physically, mentally, emotionally. I had barely slept the night before because my legal team had called with news that Apex was trying to freeze my assets pending the outcome of the trial. But when I stepped onto that court, something shifted. The crowd was louder than I had ever heard them. They were chanting my name, not just because I was a good player, but because of what I stood for. And that energy filled me up in a way I had not felt in months. I played the game of my life. 38 points, 12 assists, 9 rebounds. We won by 15. When the final buzzer sounded, the arena erupted. My teammates mobbed me. Coach Stevens pulled me into a hug and whispered in my ear, "That is how you fight back." After the game, during the press conference, a reporter asked me how I managed to play so well given everything I was dealing with off the court. I looked directly into the camera and said, "Basketball is who I am. It is what I love, and nobody can take that away from me. Not Apex, not their lawyers, not anyone. They can sue me for every dollar I have, but they cannot take my game. They cannot take my heart, and they cannot make me regret standing up for what is right." The clip played on every sports show in the country. It was shared millions of times on social media, and it reminded people why they loved sports in the first place. Because sometimes, just sometimes, it is about more than wins and losses. It is about character, about courage, about standing for something. 2 days later, Judge Reeves issued her ruling. She denied Apex's motion to dismiss our countersuit. She ruled that we had presented sufficient evidence of fraudulent concealment to proceed to trial, and she ordered Apex to turn over additional internal documents as part of discovery. It was not a victory, not yet. But it was a lifeline. It meant we had a fighting chance. Jennifer called me as soon as the ruling came down. "This is huge. This is exactly what we needed. Now we can really dig into their records. If there is more evidence of wrongdoing, we will find it. What happens next? We prepare for depositions. They are going to depose you, grill you for hours about every statement you made, every decision you made. They are going to try to break you. You need to be ready. I will be ready." But the person I really needed to talk to was Jasmine. We had been distant since this whole thing started. Not because we did not care about each other, but because the pressure was so intense that I had pulled away from everyone. I did not want to drag her down with me. I drove to her apartment that night. She opened the door looking tired but beautiful. She let me in without saying anything, and we sat on her couch in silence for a long moment. "I am sorry," I finally said, "for pulling away, for shutting you out. You were scared. I get it. I was terrified. I still am. But I realized something tonight. If I lose everything else, I do not want to lose you." She looked at me with those eyes that always saw right through me. "You are not going to lose me. I am here. I have always been here. But you need to let me in. You need to stop trying to carry all of this alone." I nodded. "You are right." She took my hand. "Whatever happens in that courtroom, we will get through it together. Okay? Okay." We sat there holding hands, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I was going to survive this. The following week, depositions began. Apex deposed me for 2 full days. Hutchinson and his team asked me the same questions 50 different ways, trying to catch me in contradictions, trying to make me look like a liar, trying to break me down, but I stayed calm. I told the truth, over and over again. No matter how they phrased the questions, my answer was the same. I did not know about the labor abuses when I signed the contract. I walked away as soon as I found out, and I would make the same decision again. On the second day, Hutchinson tried a different approach. He brought up my finances, my spending habits, my lifestyle. He tried to paint me as someone who was reckless with money and now regretted walking away from a massive payday. "Is it true that you purchased a $3 million home last year?" he asked. "Yes. And a $400,000 car?" "Yes." "And you spend approximately $50,000 a month on personal expenses?" "I spend money, yes. But that does not change why I walked away from your client." He leaned forward. "Is it not true that you are now facing financial difficulties because of your decision?" "I am facing financial difficulties because your client is suing me for $120 million. He smiled. "A lawsuit you brought on yourself by breaching your contract." Jennifer objected, but the damage was done. Hutchinson had gotten what he wanted on the record. Now he could argue that my decision was not about morality, it was about buyer's remorse. But then we got our turn. Over the next 2 weeks, we deposed Apex executives. And that is when things got interesting, because under oath they could not lie. And when Jennifer asked them directly if they had known about the labor violations before I signed my contract, they stammered. They deflected. They claimed ignorance. But the documents told a different story. One executive, a vice president of global operations, admitted under oath that he had received reports about unsafe working conditions, but had not escalated them because he did not think they were significant. Another admitted that the company had paid settlements to workers who had been injured in factory accidents but had required them to sign non-disclosure agreements. With each deposition, our case got stronger, and Apex's defense got weaker. Then something unexpected happened. A former Apex employee reached out to Jennifer. She had worked in their corporate communications department for 7 years and had just been laid off. She was angry, and she had a hard drive full of files that Apex had not turned over in discovery. We met her at Jennifer's office. She was young, maybe 30, and clearly nervous. She handed over the hard drive and Jennifer plugged it into her computer. "What is on here?" Jennifer asked. "Everything. Emails they deleted, memos they shredded and then scanned, internal discussions about how to discredit workers who spoke out, plans to smear anyone who threatened their business, including him." She pointed at me. Jennifer opened a folder and started reading through files. Her eyes went wide. "They have a file on you. A whole dossier. They were tracking your social media, your relationships, your finances. They were looking for anything they could use against you if you ever became a problem." I felt a chill run down my spine. They were planning this. Before I even signed the contract. They knew someone might eventually walk away, and they were ready to destroy whoever did. Jennifer looked at the woman. "Will you testify to all of this in court?" She nodded. "I will. I am done protecting them." This changed everything. We now had proof that Apex was not just negligent. They were actively malicious. They had built an entire system designed to silence dissent and crush anyone who threatened their profits. Jennifer filed an emergency motion with the court, presenting the new evidence. Judge Reeves scheduled a hearing for the following week. On the day of the hearing, the courthouse was even more packed than before. Word had leaked about the new evidence, and the media was in a frenzy. Apex's legal team looked rattled. For the first time since this began, they were the ones on defense. Jennifer presented the evidence methodically. The deleted emails, the surveillance, the plans to discredit me. She showed that Apex had not just hidden their labor practices. They had actively conspired to protect those practices by any means necessary. When she finished, the courtroom was silent. Even Hutchinson seemed stunned. Judge Reeves looked at the Apex legal team. "Do you have a response to this evidence?" Hutchinson stood up slowly. "Your Honor, we would like to request a recess to review these materials and prepare a response." The judge shook her head. "You have had months to prepare your case. You do not get to pause now because new evidence makes you uncomfortable. So I will ask you again, do you have a response?" Hutchinson looked at his team. They were whispering frantically. Finally, he turned back to the judge. "Not at this time, Your Honor." Judge Reeves leaned back in her chair. "Then here is what is going to happen. I am ordering Apex Athletics to participate in mediation, and I am strongly suggesting that both parties find a way to resolve this before we go to trial. Because if this goes to trial and this evidence is presented to a jury, I suspect Apex is going to face consequences far beyond this lawsuit." She banged her gavel. Court adjourned. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Jennifer gave a brief statement saying we were pleased with the judge's ruling and looked forward to mediation. But I did not say anything. I just walked to my car, got in, and sat there for a long time. My phone rang. It was Marcus. I had not spoken to him in weeks. "I saw the news," he said. "Congratulations. You might actually win this thing. Maybe. Look, I know things ended badly between us. But I want you to know, what you did took guts. I did not see it at first, but I see it now. Thanks, Marcus. If you ever need representation again, call me. I mean that." He hung up and I sat there, processing everything that had happened. I had gone from signing the biggest deal of my career to losing everything to maybe, just maybe, coming out on the other side with something more valuable than money, my integrity, my voice, and a chance to change the way things worked. That night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror and looked at myself. Really looked. I saw exhaustion. Gray hairs I did not have 6 months ago. Lines around my eyes from stress and sleepless nights. But I also saw something else. Strength. Purpose. The face of a man who had been tested and had not broken. I thought about my father, about what he would say if he could see me now. And I knew, without a doubt, that he would tell me to keep fighting, to finish what I started, to see it through to the end. So that is exactly what I was going to do. Mediation was scheduled for 2 weeks after the judge's ruling. Those 2 weeks felt longer than the entire 6 months that had preceded them. Every day brought new developments. More workers came forward with their stories. More athletes announced they were reviewing their endorsement deals. The conversation had shifted from whether I had done the right thing to why more people were not doing the same thing. Apex's stock continued to fall. Their CEO resigned under pressure from the board. Major retailers announced they were suspending orders until Apex could prove they had reformed their labor practices. The company was hemorrhaging money and credibility, and they knew that going to trial would only make things worse. But I was not celebrating. Because I knew that mediation meant compromise. It meant both sides would have to give something up, and I was not sure what I was willing to sacrifice. The night before mediation, I could not sleep. I sat on my balcony looking out at the city, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. The signing, the scandal, the lawsuit, the depositions, the evidence. Every decision I had made, every risk I had taken, had brought me here, to this one day that would determine everything. Jasmine found me there around 3 a.m. She wrapped a blanket around my shoulders and sat down next to me. "You should be sleeping," she said. "I should be doing a lot of things." She took my hand. "Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know something. You changed things. You changed the conversation. You made people care about something they had ignored for years. That matters. Even if you do not get the outcome you want, that still matters. I just do not want to let anyone down." Maria, her daughter, all the workers who came forward because they thought I could actually make a difference. "You already made a difference. Now you just need to finish it." The mediation took place in a conference room at a neutral law office downtown. It was supposed to be private, but somehow the media found out. By the time I arrived, there were cameras everywhere. I kept my head down and let Jennifer guide me through the crowd and into the building. Inside, the conference room was set up with 2 tables facing each other, my legal team on one side, Apex's legal team on the other, and in the middle, a mediator named Dr. Ellen Price, a retired judge with a reputation for getting impossible parties to reach agreement. The Apex team looked different than they had in court, less confident, more desperate. Hutchinson was still there, but he was not leading anymore. Instead, Apex had brought in their new interim CEO, a woman named Margaret Foster. She was in her 50s, gray suit, tired eyes. She looked like someone who had been brought in to clean up a mess she did not create. Dr. Price started by explaining the ground rules. Everything said in this room was confidential. Both sides would have a chance to present their position. Then we would break into separate rooms and she would go back and forth, trying to find common ground. The goal was to reach a settlement that both parties could live with. Jennifer presented our position first. We wanted Apex to admit wrongdoing, to commit to real reform in their labor practices, to compensate the workers who had been exploited, and to drop all claims against me. When she finished, Margaret Foster spoke for Apex. Her voice was measured, careful. She acknowledged that the company had made mistakes, that systems had failed, that people had been harmed. But she stopped short of admitting intentional wrongdoing. She said Apex was committed to reform, that they had already begun implementing new oversight procedures, that they wanted to make things right. But then she said something that caught me off guard. However, we cannot simply walk away from our legal claims without some form of accountability. Your client made public statements that damaged our brand and our business. We need assurance that this will not happen again. Jennifer leaned forward. Your client is only damaged because the truth came out. You want accountability? How about accountability for the workers who were exploited? How about accountability for the executives who covered it up? The room got tense. Dr. Price intervened, suggesting we break into separate rooms. She would meet with each side individually and see if she could bridge the gap. For the next 4 hours, Dr. Price went back and forth. She would come to our room, present Apex's latest offer, and we would discuss it. Then she would go back to them with our counteroffer. The numbers kept changing. The terms kept shifting. But the fundamental issue remained. Apex wanted me to agree to never speak publicly about them again. And I was not willing to do that. Around 3 p.m, Dr. Price came back to our room looking frustrated. They are willing to drop the financial claims against you entirely. No lawsuit, no damages, you walk away clean. But in exchange, they want a non-disparagement clause. You agree not to make any negative public statements about Apex Athletics now or in the future. Jennifer looked at me. It is a good offer. You would avoid bankruptcy, keep your assets, move on with your life. But I would have to stay silent, I said. Jennifer nodded. Yes. I stood up and walked to the window. Below, I could see people walking on the street, going about their lives, unaware that in this room I was being asked to choose between my freedom and my voice. What about the workers? I asked. What is Apex offering them? Dr. Price checked her notes. They have agreed to establish a $10 million fund to compensate workers who can prove they were harmed by unsafe working conditions. They will also implement third-party audits of all their factories moving forward. $10 million. It sounded like a lot, but divided among thousands of workers across multiple countries, it was nothing. A token gesture. Just enough to look good in the press. It is not enough, I said. Dr. Price sighed. It may be the best you are going to get. Apex is facing enormous pressure from their board and their shareholders. They cannot afford to admit full liability. If they do, they will face lawsuits from workers all over the world. The company could go under entirely. Maybe it should, I said. Jennifer put her hand on my arm. I understand your frustration, but you need to think about this practically. If Apex goes bankrupt, those workers lose their jobs. The factories close, and nothing changes. Is that really what you want? I turned to face her. What I want is justice, real justice, not just a settlement that makes everyone feel better while nothing actually changes. Then what do you propose? Dr. Price asked. I thought about Maria, about her daughter, about all the people who had trusted me to fight for them, and I knew what I needed to do. I want Apex to commit $50 million to the compensation fund, I said. Not 10, 50. I want independent oversight of their factories for the next 10 years, with public reporting on working conditions. I want them to guarantee that no worker in their supply chain is under the age of 16. And I want them to establish a whistleblower program so workers can report abuses without fear of retaliation. And in exchange, Jennifer asked, in exchange, I will agree not to pursue further legal action against them, but I will not sign a non-disparagement clause. I reserve the right to speak about labor issues in the sports industry. If Apex reforms like they claim they will have nothing to worry about. Dr. Price wrote everything down. This is a significant ask. I am not sure they will agree to it. Tell them this is my final offer. If they reject it, we go to trial. And I will make sure every single document we found gets presented to a jury. Every email, every memo, every piece of evidence showing they knew what was happening and chose to profit from it anyway. Dr. Price left. Jennifer looked at me. You know there is a chance they will walk away from this. They might decide to take their chances in court rather than meet your demands. I know, but I am done compromising. If we are going to end this, it has to mean something. An hour passed. Then another. Jennifer and I sat in that room, not talking, just waiting. My phone buzzed with messages from Jasmine, from my mom, from teammates. Everyone wanted to know what was happening, but I could not answer them. Not yet. Finally, Dr. Price returned. She sat down across from us, and for the first time all day she smiled. They have agreed to your terms. I felt the air leave my lungs. What? 50 million for the compensation fund? Independent oversight for 10 years with public reporting. Minimum age requirement of 16 for all workers. Whistleblower program with protections. And no non-disparagement clause. You are free to speak about labor issues however you choose, as long as you do not make false statements about the company. I looked at Jennifer. She was grinning. There is one more thing, Dr. Price said. Margaret Foster wants to meet with you. Privately. Just the two of you. Why? She did not say, but she seemed to think it was important. I agreed. A few minutes later, Margaret Foster walked into our conference room alone. She closed the door behind her and sat down across from me. Up close, she looked even more tired than before, like she had been carrying a weight for a very long time. I wanted to apologize, she said, not as the interim CEO of Apex, as a person. What happened in those factories was inexcusable, and the fact that people in this company knew about it and did nothing is even worse. I cannot undo that, but I can promise you that as long as I am in charge, things will be different. Why should I believe you? Because I have 2 daughters. And when I saw the photos of those kids in the factories, all I could think about was what if that were them? What if they were the ones being exploited while rich people in comfortable offices looked the other way? I could not live with that. So I am going to make sure this company changes. Real change, not just PR. I studied her face looking for signs of deception, but all I saw was exhaustion and determination. Good, I said, because the whole world is going to be watching. She nodded. I know. And that is exactly what we need. We shook hands. And in that moment, I felt something shift. This was not just about winning or losing anymore. It was about creating something better, something that would last beyond this lawsuit, beyond this moment. The settlement was announced the next day. The reaction was overwhelming. Workers' rights organizations called it a historic victory. Other athletes announced they were making similar demands of their sponsors. Congress scheduled hearings on labor practices in the sports apparel industry. The conversation had fundamentally changed, but the moment that mattered most to me came 2 weeks later. Maria came to one of my games. Jasmine had arranged it, working with a workers' rights organization to bring her and her daughter to the United States for a visit. After the game, I met them in a private room at the arena. Maria's daughter was there, the same girl from the photo. She was shy at first, standing behind her mother. But when I knelt down to her eye level and told her I was honored to meet her, she smiled. My daughter wants to thank you, Maria said, translating from Spanish. She says because of what you did, the factory where she works is safer now. They have fire exits. They have breaks. They have inspectors who come every month. She says you gave her hope. I felt tears in my eyes, but I did not try to hide them. Tell her that she gave me courage, that her story changed my life, and that I will keep fighting for her and everyone like her. Maria translated, and her daughter nodded. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a small bracelet. She had made it herself, woven from colorful thread. She handed it to me and said something in Spanish. She says this is to remind you that you are a warrior, Maria translated, and warriors never give up. I put the bracelet on my wrist and it is still there today. Every time I look at it, I remember why I made the choice I made, why I walked away from the money, why I risked everything. The season ended 3 months later. We made it to the playoffs but lost in the second round. It was disappointing, but somehow it did not feel like failure, because I had already won something more important than a championship. My contract with the team was up for renewal. There were questions about whether they would want to keep me after everything that had happened. But Coach Stevens called me into his office and told me they were offering me a new 4-year deal. Not as much money as I could have gotten before the Apex situation, but enough, more than enough. You made this team better, he said, not just on the court. You reminded everyone what sports is supposed to be about. Character, courage, doing what is right even when it costs you. I signed the contract that day. Marcus reached out a few weeks later. He wanted to meet for coffee. I almost said no, but something told me to give him a chance. We met at the same coffee shop where I had first talked to Sarah Chen, the journalist who had helped expose Apex's practices. Marcus looked different, less polished, more human. "I owe you an apology," he said. "I let money cloud my judgment. I pushed you to do something that was wrong because it was profitable, and I am sorry. I appreciate that." He pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. "I have been working on something, a new type of endorsement deal, where athletes partner with companies that have transparent supply chains and ethical labor practices. It is not going to make you $100 million, but it is going to make you proud." I opened the folder and saw proposals from several smaller brands, companies that made their products domestically, companies that paid fair wages, companies that were committed to doing business the right way. "This is good work, Marcus. Will you let me represent you again?" I looked at him for a long moment. Then I nodded. "Yeah. Let's do this right this time." Over the next year, I partnered with 3 ethical brands. The money was a fraction of what Apex had offered, but every time I wore their products or appeared in their campaigns, I felt good about it. I felt like I was building something that mattered. Jasmine and I got married that summer. Small ceremony, just family and close friends, no media, no cameras, just us, making promises to each other in front of the people who had stood by us through the hardest time of our lives. On our honeymoon, we visited Honduras. We went to the factory where Maria and her daughter had worked. It was different now. Brighter. Safer. Workers had breaks. Children were in schools, not on factory floors. The change was real. Imperfect, but real. We met with workers and heard their stories. Some were grateful. Some were still angry that it had taken so long for anyone to care. All of them were fighting for something better, and I promised them I would keep fighting too. When we got back to the States, I started a foundation. The goal was to support workers' rights organizations around the world, to fund education programs for kids who would otherwise end up in factories, to push for transparency in corporate supply chains. Jasmine ran it. She was better at that kind of work than I ever could be, and watching her fight for these issues with the same passion she had always had made me fall in love with her all over again. Basketball became something different for me after that year. It was not just about winning anymore. It was about using the platform the game gave me to amplify voices that were not being heard. Every time I did an interview, I talked about labor rights. Every time I signed an autograph, I thought about the workers who made the products I endorsed. Every time I stepped on the court, I played for something bigger than myself. 3 years after the settlement, Sarah Chen published a book about the whole experience. It was called The Real Price of Glory, and it told the story of what happened from every angle: the workers, the lawyers, the executives, and me. When I read it, I was struck by how much I had not known at the time. How many people had been fighting behind the scenes? How many small decisions had added up to something historic? The book became a bestseller. It was taught in business schools and law schools. It sparked more conversations, more reforms, more athletes standing up. The ripple effect was bigger than I ever could have imagined. But the moment that meant the most came 5 years after I walked away from the Apex deal. I was at a charity game, playing with a bunch of retired legends and current stars. The arena was packed. The energy was incredible. And during a timeout, a kid came onto the court as part of a fan contest. He was maybe 16, tall, skinny, nervous. He made a half-court shot and the crowd went crazy. When they handed him his prize, he asked if he could say something on the microphone. The announcer handed it to him and he looked right at me. "I just want to say thank you," he said, his voice shaking. "My mom works in a factory. Before you did what you did, her job was dangerous. She got hurt a lot. She did not have health insurance, but now she does. The factory is safer. She comes home with energy to spend time with me, and she tells me all the time that it is because you stood up. So thank you. For real." The arena erupted in applause. I walked over to the kid and gave him a hug. And in that moment, I knew. Everything I had given up, everything I had risked, everything I had lost and gained, it had all been worth it. Because sports is not just about the points you score or the trophies you win. It is about the example you set, the values you represent, the impact you have on people's lives. And if my career ended tomorrow, I could walk away knowing I had used my platform for something that mattered. That night, I went home to Jasmine. We sat on our couch, her head on my shoulder, and watched the highlights from the charity game. When they showed the kid thanking me, she squeezed my hand. "You did good, baby," she said. "Real good." I looked at the bracelet on my wrist, the one Maria's daughter had given me, the one that reminded me I was a warrior, and I smiled. "Yeah," I said, "I think I did."